Welcome back to another episode of Dr. Bugatti. Today we're going to talk about two specific transactions, same client. Now, I'm not trying to bore you with Mayweather, but again, after transacting with him 60 times, unfortunately, he's going to come up quite often. But there are other celebrities and other individuals that are not celebrities, but well financially healed individuals that we'll also talk about. So today we're going to talk about a Ferrari Enzo in Abu Dhabi. So I get a call from this gentleman. He says, Obi, there's a US spec Ferrari Enzo in Abu Dhabi with 352 miles. And I said that it doesn't exist. So he says, you know what? I will connect you with the seller, but you got to pay me 20 grand. I said, no problem. Lo and behold, he connects me with the seller. I'm dealing with the seller's assistant. I said, I need to see the VIN. He sends the VIN over. I take that VIN and I send it to Ferrari of North America, and then my guy at Ferrari of North America confirms that's a US spec Enzo. He runs it on Ferrari's system. Woo! I said, wow, we got something here. Then at this point, I said, I need you to take specific pictures of the emissions label because I want to be 100% sure that this car is a 50-state car because I'm going to bring it into California and I need to register it in California. And as you know, besides the smog restrictions in the United States, California has CARB, which is California Air Resources Board. So besides the smog standards in the United States, California's smog standards are even higher. And I want to make sure that this car is truly a US spec. Bottom line, lo and behold, it is. So I decide to fly to Abu Dhabi. I wire him a deposit. I wired him 100 grand. And he said, Obi, you got to be here to be there on a Saturday. I need to be there on a Saturday at 9 a.m. I was going to buy, so I'm in LA. So I said, let me find a ticket and fly to Dubai. I got to fly to Dubai, land in Dubai, then I got to take a car to Abu Dhabi. And when I travel, I'm very, very aircraft specific. When I travel internationally, I don't look primarily for the airline. I am focused on the aircraft. So I wanted to take an Emirates Airbus A380 Emirates Airlines to Dubai. However, golly, I think they were charging me like $8,000 or $9,000, and I just didn't want to spend that kind of money. We're a small dealership. We got to watch our expenses. So I found that China Southern, you can fly from here to China on an Airbus A380, and that was like 13 hours. And then from there, I was on the ground another like 12 hours, and then from there, I could fly another 8 hours to Abu Dhabi. I said I'm going to do that because I'd never been to China before. So what had happened is, and that ticket was only $4 grand. It was, less than half the price. So I hop on a flight, go to China. From China, I land in Dubai that Saturday morning at 1 a.m. I had a car waiting for me. The car took me to Abu Dhabi, and I stayed at the hotel. At 8:59, I showed up at the dealership. I walked around this dealership in Abu Dhabi. I looked at the car. I started the car and ran the car. The car was immaculate condition. And you know what? It was a US spec car. So I asked the guy, I said, listen, what is this US spec Enzo doing in Abu Dhabi? He says, Obi, I've got property in the United States. This car was heading to the United States. And I said, you know what? Let's divert it and let's send it to Abu Dhabi. Next thing you know, call the office, wire the balance. Wire the balance from the United States to Abu Dhabi to this guy. For some reason, when you wire, you need a SWIFT number, not besides the tracking number. Besides the account number and whatever the other ACH number, you need a SWIFT number. We wired the money didn't get there. And it, Monday, Tuesday, then something happened. It said it's going to be about 3 to 4 days. So at this time, I just got all this time to kill. I got time to kill. The next thing you know, I get a call. I get a call again from my old friend who I mentioned in a previous episode, Andy Cohen. Andy Cohen calls me and says, hey, Obi, what are you doing in Abu Dhabi? I had not told a soul. Nobody knew I was in Abu Dhabi. And I said, Andy, why are you calling me? How'd you know I'm in Abu Dhabi? He goes, I heard that you are in Abu Dhabi buying an Enzo. Obi, I want that Enzo. I have a client for that Enzo. The deal I will make you is I will reimburse you for all your expenses and I'll pay you 200 grand. Walk away from the car. So I hung up the phone with Andy, and may he rest in peace. I contacted, so I go back to the owner, and I had some tea, some coffee with the owner. I said, hey, listen, did you tell anybody that I was here? He says, Obi, I got a call from 2 different people, and I told them that the Enzo is sold. And he showed me the text on his phone. And I said, and they asked him, who did you sell it to? He said, I sold it to a guy named Obi. And I said, oh my God, you should not have mentioned my name. Because a lot of times when you're in the middle of a transaction this big and this juicy, a lot of things can come sideways, and some can go sideways. And sometimes people can come and make a deal from underneath you. I said, oh my God. So at this point, Andy Cohen calls me again the next day. He says, Obi, will you take $250,000? Listen, I'll reimburse you for your flight. I'll reimburse you for your hotel. I'll reimburse you for all your travel expenses. And on top of that, I'll give you $250,000 to walk away from the car. I said, no. We end up buying this Enzo. When we end up buying the Enzo, I end up buying the car. I'm there in Abu Dhabi. And then to ship an Enzo out of the United Arab Emirates is actually a big process. So the wire hadn't hit. When the wire hadn't hit, I'm killing time. I go out there and I'm riding a camel. I go to a camel farm, okay? And I go to this camel farm. I'm just killing time. And this freaking camel at this camel farm just walks up to me, loves me, and this camel steps on my foot, and I'm screaming my head off at this camel farm. All right, this guy comes and he grabs the camel away from me. Okay, then they put me in a Toyota Land Cruiser, and they would go out in the middle of the desert, and they were hanging out there and watching the belly dancers in the sky. And then I'm still waiting for this money to hit. I end up going to this other hotel, where they have this big aquarium, and I'm just basically around Abu Dhabi and Dubai killing time. The money hits. When the money hits, I leave Abu Dhabi, hire a driver, and go to Dubai. And I go to Emirates Airlines. I said, Emirates, I need this Enzo in LA immediately. They said, Obi, the soonest we can get the Enzo to LA is going to be about 12 to 13 days. I said, well, that's not going to work. I said, what is the first flight that you can get this thing into the United States of America? They said, we got a flight in 3 days that's going to land in Seattle. Let's go. Let's ship this thing. Let's fly this car to Seattle. So I make the flight arrangements, pay them on the spot because I had to get back. I had been in Abu Dhabi for 10 days. So I make arrangements, they flatbed the car. I call a trucker in LA. I said, drive to Seattle airport. And he's in LA. He goes to pick up. I said, you got to pick up an Enzo. He goes, when should I leave? I said, leave now. Okay. He goes, where's the information about the car? I said, don't worry, I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you. So he starts heading up there, gets up to Seattle. I land back in the States, and he loads it up on a truck and brings it to my showroom. Everything is great. Well, the Enzo sits there for a year. And again, as I said, I don't want to bore you with Mayweather, but we got Mayweather again. Mayweather keeps coming to the showroom. He keeps looking at his Enzo. In the meantime, he's buying cars. I think around 2:15, 2:30 in the morning, he calls me usually an hour ahead. Hey, Obi, can you open up your showroom? I said, yeah. So he shows up around 2:15, 2:30 in the morning, and he says, listen, I want these 2 Ferraris. I'm going to buy them. I want them right now. I said, no problem. So I'm getting the car ready. And mind you, right, this is like 2:45 a.m. in the morning. He says, Obi, I don't want to do that. I want the Enzo, and I want it now. I'm like, what about, he says, no, I want the Enzo now. So by 3:30 a.m., car started. I had to run down to the gas station, find a gas station that's open 24 hours, fill it up with fuel, contract Mayweather, get the check, and he's burning rubber. He's out of there probably around 3-something before 4 a.m. in the morning in this Enzo. Okay? And this Enzo he got, he's driving it around. He got it before the Pacquiao fight. Okay? After the Pacquiao fight, he says, Obi, I want to sell the Enzo. I said, fine. He brings the Enzo back to me. Let me tell you about this Enzo. If anybody doesn't know, a Ferrari Enzo is probably one of the last analog vehicles ever made. It is more exclusive than the LaFerrari because they only made 399, and then they made number 400, which was for the Pope, which was auctioned off. Okay, So this Ferrari Enzo is definitely a highly desirable car. Of a Ferrari Enzo with 1,000 miles is going to sell for more money than a LaFerrari with 1,000 miles. That is just how desirable the Ferrari Enzo is, because it's a highly, very limited numbered car. So Floyd Mayweather says, sell my Enzo for me. Ship the Enzo back from Vegas. Then one day he calls me. He says, Obi, you still have the Enzo? I said, yes. He goes, I need you to ship the Enzo to Vegas. Now, he had fought the Pacquiao fight. Now he's getting ready to fight the Berto fight. Okay? So he had come in and he had seen this car, and he says, Obi, what is this car? I said, the silver car. It's a Koenigsegg. It's a Koenigsegg CCXR Trevita, 1,018 horsepower. He goes, it's not bad. So back again, he says, ship the Enzo to me. I need it for a photo shoot. Then I'm going to ship it back to you. I got a truck, pulled the Enzo out of the showroom. I loaded the Enzo on the truck, getting ready to go to Vegas. Floyd calls me again. Obi, I want that Koenigsegg in your showroom floor. I said, what about the Enzo? Trade the Enzo in, give me the Koenigsegg. I said, no problem. And whatever I owe you, I'll pay the difference. No problem. I load the Koenigsegg on the truck, ship it to him. He's got the Koenigsegg. And he used the Koenigsegg to show up on press day. And this is before the Berto fight, Mayweather-Berto. And he didn't even know what in fact, if you know the Koenigsegg is a vehicle that was created by a guy named Christian Koenigsegg. And a lot of people right now know of Christian Koenigsegg. In this car, the Koenigsegg's are highly, highly desirable. In fact, this CCX Trevita that Floyd got, they only made 2 of them in the world. One a US car and one that's over in Europe. And this car, it looks silver, but it's actually a white carbon fiber with diamonds encrusted in the carbon fiber. So this is an extremely, extremely difficult car to build. And I asked Christian, they were supposed to make 3 of them, but they only made 2. And I said, Christian, why did you make 2? He says, Obi, it was very, very difficult. So I talked about this Koenigsegg with Floyd, press day, at his gym, CNN, Sports Illustrated, everybody was there. And this car was a real showstopper. So one day I'm in Vegas before the Berto fight. It's the middle of summer. It's probably about 102 degrees outside. Floyd goes to Fatburger. When he goes to Fatburger, the Koenigsegg had a battery issue. The batteries died. He took off and it just died in the middle of the strip. And you know, when Floyd's walking around or moving around, his entourage he's running like 60 deep when he's fighting, but the crowd around him and the crowd in the street and the crowd and people just came up to his car and the car couldn't start. The batteries died. So it took like an hour and a half for a flatbed to come. The cops came. They said, you're blocking. I pushed it over to the side. I'm sweating like a pig. I pushed the Koenigsegg over to the side. So I was able to get on a flatbed, had my buddy open his shop at about 1:30 in the morning, and I dropped it off at his shop, and I'm there. So I called Christian Koenigsegg on his cell phone in Sweden. And Christian Koenigsegg says, Obi, what's the problem? And I explained him what's going on. I said, I got this problem, got that problem. So Christian said, I'm going to get back to you. He gets back to me the next day. You know what he said? This is power, man. Christian said, Obi, I'm going to fly a mechanic from Sweden to Las Vegas, and he's going to take care of whatever issues that Mayweather's experiencing. I'm like, wow, Christian, this blew my mind. So a week later, I get the information for the mechanic when he's going to land. He lands in Vegas. I pick him up in my Suburban because he comes with all kinds of bags and tools. I mean, I don't know what they charged him for. He must have been overweight to the tune of thousands of dollars because the bags and the tools and the parts that he came with, because he did not know what to expect. So he showed up with all these things. I said, Floyd, I'm going to need your car for a week. He goes, well, that's not acceptable. I said, okay, can I at least have it for 5 days? He goes, that's not acceptable. But I said, Floyd, we need to get these issues corrected. Christian flew this mechanic in. I used my buddy's shop. His shop was at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And I rented a hotel up in that area. And I was just going into the shop for maybe 5 or 6 days. making sure I bought them breakfast, I bought them lunch, I got them drinks, I bought them dinner. But when I saw what Christian Koenigsegg did for me, I never forgot that. When I saw what he did to handle the issues that Floyd was experiencing with his car, and mind you, it was a used car. The car at that time was 5 years old. It wasn't under any type of warranty, and Christian paid for all of this thing to happen. So Christian, I never forgot that. I gotta say thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know I thanked you before, and I'm gonna thank you again. So with that being said, this Koenigsegg CCXR Trevita, one of the most special cars ever built on the planet. And as I stated, 1,018 horsepower. And the funniest thing is that when I drove this car around the city and I drove it out on the freeway on the 15, the thing rides. It rides very comfortable. It's a very well built car, but that motor is definitely something to behold. Extremely fast. I think the top speed is like 240 or 250. Again, another supercar. But that's one of the experiences that I dealt with Floyd going to Abu Dhabi. So I took a trip to Abu Dhabi blind. I'd never been there before. So when you start one deal with one car, you never know if it's going to segue into another car. You never know what's going to happen after you're done with that deal. You don't know who's going to come forward. So bottom line is that Floyd eventually wanted to sell the car, and I took the car back from him and sold it to another client of mine. And with that being said, I believe that a person that never takes a chance will never have a chance. So when it comes to doing business and when it comes to deals, you must take chances. Not everything is going to work. Yes, there's a lot of failure. There are a lot of mistakes, but mistakes are mandatory for you to succeed. It is mandatory for you to make mistakes. So going to Abu Dhabi blind, dealing with somebody that I never met, ended up selling the Enzo Mayweather once, getting it back, selling the Enzo to somebody else, and then selling Mayweather a Koenigsegg, getting it back and selling that car to somebody else. So that trip to Abu Dhabi, that risk that you take, ended up being a 4-car deal. Enzo sold twice, Koenigsegg sold twice. So always remember that. And one last thing, this is something that I learned very, very young. This is something that was told to me very, very young. There are 3 types of people. There are those who watch things happen. There are those who make things happen. And then there are those who wonder what the F just happened. So who do you want to be? See you at the next episode.